Hello, everyone. As you're joining us today, I want to say thank you for coming and joining us as far as for this webinar, Finding Your Federal Customer. We have a wonderful speaker today in Judy Warren. She is the program manager with Tribal Government Institute Apex Accelerator. And we're going to get a little bit more about Judy and everything. I just want to allow everyone to start that are joining us to go ahead and gather into the room. Couple of housekeeping duties. You will see, as far as on your toolbox, a Q&A box. If you have a question that you would like to have answered, please submit that into the Q&A. Now, as for the chat box, please utilize that chat box to introduce yourself, to do some networking while we're doing the webinar. Again, the Q&A box for questions, the chat box to do some networking, as far as drop your card in there or drop your information in there, and just do some networking while we're doing the webinar. Let me go over here and talk about our guest speaker. Well, number one, I am extremely honored to have Judy as part of our webinar. Judy Warren currently serves as the program manager for the Tribal Government Institute, the Apex Accelerator, where she provides counseling and training for current and potential government contractors. She has more than 30 years of experience with government contracts, and she holds certifications from both the National Contract Management Association, which is the NCMA, and the Association of Procurement and Technical Assistance Centers, which is ATAC. She believes that success in government contracting marketplace is only achieved when a company finds opportunities, wins those contracts, and performs those contracts successfully, and of course, more than anything, make a profit. So again, Judy, you have no, I don't have enough words to say how much I greatly appreciate you being, as far as a guest speaker and doing this webinar today. And, I'm going to, stop sharing here and allow you to come on board and, of course, take over the screen and share your knowledge that you're going to have for our folks as they join our webinar.
Thank you, Ed. This is a great opportunity for me. I'm happy to be here, and we will be talking today about finding those federal customers, which is not as easy at all times as it might appear to be when you first say the words. It's kind of like when someone says, oh, I'm going to sell to the government. Well, there isn't just one little thing out there that's called the government. So there's a lot of learning that we do along the way. And I'm going to share today with you some of the things that I've learned, and hopefully you can share with the rest of us as well. If you have comments or experiences you would like to share, please let us know. Those may help other people who are listening. Well, I have 12:02, which should be 1:02 your time. So I guess we're ready to start.
Yes, we are. We are ready to start, Judy. And if there are some questions that come along, I will come in and, and help you out with those questions.
Thank you so much. Like Ed said, I'm a procurement counselor right now with the Tribal Government Institute Apex Accelerator in Norman, Oklahoma. I've worked with government contractors for over 20 years, trying to help them along the path of selling to the government and also selling to prime contractors. Because one of the things you may find is that your best customer may not be the agency itself, but one of the agency's prime contractors. And we'll explore that a little bit as we go along today. You've probably heard that the U.S. government is one of the largest purchasers in the world, and that surely they're buying what you're selling. And while that may be true, there's a process that you can go through to try to identify which part of the government is likely to be buying those products and services. So we have some suggestions today to try to help you along the way. You don't have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to spend marketing and doing marketing research. So the objective today is to give you some steps to follow that may help reduce the amount of time and effort required for you to identify the people that you need to contact and to have a few clues about how to go about contacting them once you discover who those people are. I also encourage you to listen to other advisors. There are a number of people in the world, especially the LinkedIn world, who are willing to help you at no charge, and some who can provide some assistance at low cost before you delve into some more expensive issues. So everyone will probably need some help at some point, but if you start with doing your own homework, you're going to be better off. I firmly believe that that is true just as much as it's true that when I need an attorney, I'm not going to just open the internet and search for any attorney in my area. If I'm dealing with a legal issue regarding real estate, I'm going to look for a lawyer who specializes in real estate. So very much like that, there are a number of experts out there who can help you, and it just depends on what the question is, who might be able to help you find the right answers. Sometimes you will need to seek professionals like advisors and consulting firms and attorneys. For right now, we're going to get started at the very beginning. So how do you start when you're trying to find those federal customers? First thing is, I put together a list of suggested steps for finding those federal customers. There is nothing that is absolute about this. There are many approaches. So adapt these ideas to help you where you are and see what works for you. But first, I suggest that you try to identify your customer groups, and that would be which agencies purchase your products or services, and likewise, what prime contractors to those agencies might be able to utilize your products and services in performing their prime contracts. And once you find those, and we're going to start with some simple online databases available to everyone. Once you identify some of those customer groups, then do your homework. Learn about each potential customer. You want to investigate that potential customer's buying practices. You want to understand their mission. You want to see where you fit in. What can you do to help them further their mission? I recommend identifying 2 to 3 potential customers to investigate further. And then this is an iterative process. So once you've learned a little bit about those, you can add more potential customers to your list. But starting with 2 or 3 will allow you to focus so that you can really learn and understand that customer. Then I think it's good to spend some time preparing yourself before you introduce yourself to that customer. So we're going to talk about some preliminaries. Then once you have done that and you're ready to connect with that customer, who within that organization are you going to connect with? You're going to want to learn and find all of the people you can with titles like small business professional, small business liaison officer, or supplier diversity professional. And there may be other titles that I have omitted because I'm not familiar with them. These are the ones that I'm most familiar with. Agencies will often call the office where their small business professionals are located the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, or the Office of Small Business Programs. So those are keywords you can use when you're looking for things online. If you speak their language, you will find the information much more quickly. So then you want to build and maintain the relationships. And I try to call those connections because I found that sometimes when people use the word relationship, they get the wrong idea. We're not talking here about taking somebody out to play golf or anything like that. We're talking about building business relationships by honest communications and delivering what you promise, owning up to errors when you make them, and trying to mitigate any damage, correct problems, and go forward. Basically, the same things that you would expect your customers or your suppliers to do with you. So, first of all, let's identify customer groups. We're talking about federal agencies and offices that buy what you sell, and prime contractors and subcontractors who could partner with you to sell to the government. So you have to do your homework and understand their mission. Learn how they interact with potential vendors and contractors. A lot of agencies and companies want you to fill out paperwork and sort of identify for yourself what your niche is within their world before you engage with them. You want to investigate their use of contract vehicles, strategic sourcing initiatives, and contract types so that you know what you're looking at when you start to work with them. Some agencies rely heavily on GSA's MAS, the multiple award schedule. So if that's the case, if you do some research and it looks like all the buys are being made against GSA schedule contracts, then you may want to investigate how to get a GSA schedule. You want to learn about their current suppliers, and sometimes you actually can. Sometimes the small business professional can provide you that information. Sometimes you can get it from databases. We're going to look at a database called usspending.gov, and that database has some information about subcontractors. It's not going to be complete and totally accurate. As a matter of fact, no database is complete and totally accurate, but they can still give us a really good overview so that we know where to direct our efforts. And you want to check out their projections and planned projects. With government agencies, there are forecasts online, and with a lot of companies, if you visit their websites, you can find out what they are trying to get into, what their next planned projects are, and that gives you a better idea of how you can fit into their world. So while we're looking at their buying practices, if they have a preference for contracts or IDVs, these are delivery vehicles, usually multiple award and definitely indefinite, they're indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity types of contracts for the most part. If they are using those pretty exclusively, then the way to that customer may be getting on that contract vehicle. And we can talk about that more a little later. You can also contact your Apex Accelerator to discuss that at length. Which agencies are using set-asides? If you are a woman-owned small business or a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, you want to see what kinds of set-asides the agencies are using. If they are using a set-aside that would include you, that makes them an even better target for your marketing efforts. Do they use contracts with option years? If they do, you need to learn how option years work and look at some sample solicitations that would include that. As a matter of fact, I recommend looking at sample solicitations for each agency that you're interested in selling to so that you can see what typically they require. There will be a section, typically sections L and M, that will tell you what they are expecting as far as your proposal and your qualifications to get that contract. And those are generally very much alike. If you are looking at one agency for one particular type of product or service, you're going to see the same qualifications requirements over and over. So check those out. And then you want to check the procurement forecasts. Basically, I tend to think of this as looking at the past, the present, and the future requirements of that customer so that you know where to focus your efforts. Knowing their total spend can be valuable, but I think it's even more valuable if you can find the average dollar value of the contracts that they award small businesses, because a lot of the rules in procurement are based on the dollar value of the contracts. So if they're buying a lot of things under the simplified acquisition threshold, you'll be looking at one set of requirements. And if they're primarily buying things in larger dollar volumes, then you may be looking at another set of rules. It's also important to notice whether they're classifying your products and services as commercial products and services or not. Because if it's commercial, you're going to be looking at FAR Part 12. All right, finding new customers, and I do recommend focusing on 2 or 3 organizations at a time. And to get to know them, there are lots of things you can do. Things that have worked for me in the past are following them in the news, following them on LinkedIn, and most importantly, studying their websites. If someone goes to the effort to put something on their website, it is important to them.
And Judy, right there, kind of also to kind of, that is so important, like you say, the LinkedIn and studying that potential client or customer and understanding, how that all fits in. I recommend to anyone that we actually, as far as do work for, is definitely have an awareness and be a part as far as where the business community is. So if you have not created a LinkedIn page of your company, we highly recommend that you do so, so that, that's where we go to find, even the government goes to find, some of the procurement officers, companies that are in the field in which they're looking for, a product or service. So if you do not have, again, a LinkedIn page, by all means, that is one investment that you should definitely invest in. Go ahead, Judy.
I agree totally. And I think that it's one of the best ways to spend some time. Everything you do is going to take time, and time is precious. So finding things that work the best for the amount of time you put into them is a really good idea. I think LinkedIn is one of the top things on my list. As a matter of fact, it's one of the first things I check every morning, that in my email. So that, and then checking those agency and company websites, because they will give you a lot of information there. I think that it's important to remember that finding and connecting with new customers takes time. A lot of people become very frustrated because it takes so long. But if you think back, once you got past elementary school, making friends took time. You have to trust people, and they have to trust you. If you make a promise you can't keep, you do more damage than good. So I really recommend that people take their time when moving forward. Be sure you understand what the customer needs before you promise something. And while you're doing this research to try to develop new customers, you want to continue responding to solicitations and requests for information from anybody. If you get a notice from Sam or from one of your BidMatch subscriptions that looks like something interesting, even if you have not had that agency or that prime on your focus list, you still want to respond. And particularly with requests for information from the government, frequently they're gathering information there to determine how to go about the acquisition. And if they do not get responses from small businesses, it may not be a small business set aside. So it's very important to continue responding to those things, even as you're trying to pursue other avenues in your marketing. So before you contact the small business office.
Oh, hey, Judy, I'm sorry for interrupting again, because I know that sometimes folks get a little bit of a confusion as far as a response to an RFI as being a response to an RFP. So could you kind of elaborate that, hey, yes, it is a special emphasis on responding to those RFIs, but also as well as understanding that there is a difference versus you responding to an RFI versus you're putting in a RFP?
There's a huge difference. RFIs are strictly to gather information about what is out there in the market. They are not actually asking for proposals at that time. I saw one recently where we had worked with someone to submit a response to an RFI. We thought it had just died. And sometimes they do. They don't get funding or something like that happens, and you never see that thing again. We thought that had happened to this one, but lo and behold, about 11 months later, they're coming back and saying, are you still interested? We're getting ready to post the RFP. The RFP is the request for proposal. And when you respond to that, you're making a legal offer to the government. And if they accept that offer, you have a binding contract. That is a whole lot different than just putting out an ad in the newspaper, which is pretty much what you're doing when you respond to an RFI. You're simply giving information. We have the capabilities to do this work or this portion of the work. We're interested in it as a subcontractor because we can provide X. And if possible, give them information that confirms that. They'll typically, especially on government ones, tell you what they want to hear about, and they don't want a lot of superfluous information. But I always think that if you can sneak something good about your company in there, even if they have prescribed a format, that it is good, because once we hear something or see something, we remember it. It is important to note the difference, and sometimes people get confused with RFQs too. The difference in an RFQ is simply that it results in a purchase order that you accept by performance. And we can have a whole class on the difference in those types of notices at some time if you'd like, or you can contact me after the webinar, or you're probably close to an Apex accelerator in your own area, and you can contact them and start a relationship there, because they will help you, and generally there's no cost for their assistance. So before you start calling your small business liaison officers and your small business folks at the agencies, I think it's good to do some preliminaries and also to understand their function. Their function in the company or the agency is to interact with companies like yours, to provide guidance, to help you find if there is a customer within their agency that you would be able to sell to, but they are not the people who buy. They do not have warrants and they cannot sign contracts. So you can't expect them to just suddenly hear your name and decide, oh, we can award you a contract, because they don't have that ability. But they do have the ability to get you on source lists to make sure that buyers know you exist. And that is more important than you can imagine. But before you contact them, it is always good to do the things that you know are going to be required. Then, instead of spending their time telling you that this is required, they can delve more deeply and help you actually get further along your path, because you don't need to contact them to know a few things, like you need to complete vendor registrations. The system for award management is required if you're going to sell directly to the federal government in almost all instances. When you register for SAM, you will automatically be enrolled in the dynamic small business search, sometimes called ProNet, that is run by the Small Business Administration. If you noticed how to do it when you were registering for SAM, you could go to SBA Connect and add more information to your profile. And I really recommend that, because this is a free marketing effort. You just put the information in there and then people can find it. If I am a large contractor or a small business officer at an agency and we have a need, I might go into the dynamic small business search, and probably will if we don't already have a huge list of providers. I will look there for small businesses and even different types of small businesses. If we are not meeting our SDVOSB goal, I might restrict my search to SDVOSBs. but I can look for you by keyword, by NAICS code, etc. And when your name comes up, I can click on your name and it will take me to your profile, which will include, hopefully, references that you have added to your profile to show the depth and the breadth of the work you have already accomplished with customers, whether they were government customers or private sector customers. And remember that dynamic small business search is a free marketing tool. I would include things like my quality assurance system and other issues that are important to the government. If you're trying to work with DoD, your CMMC level is going to be important to them. So use it as a free marketing tool. Vendor registrations for some companies are online, and I recommend trying to find that because A, it keeps you from being referred back to it when you try to contact the small business office, but more importantly, they will list the types of information they are specifically interested in on those vendor registration forms. So when you get ready to make a customized capability statement for that company, you know that those are the things you need to focus on. A lot of times they're using that to sort out which division in this company would you be most likely to fit into, or are you a company we can use at all? If all of our subs have to have an ISO or AS 9100 rating or something like that, and you don't have a formal quality system, then you're going to go into the not ready yet stack. And I do believe that they have not ready yet stacks. So you have to understand what they're going to need, or else you're going to waste a lot of time trying to knock on doors that are not going to open. They normally don't need just a whole lot of information from you at first. When you've passed that first hurdle and they've gotten you into a stack that says, oh, we might be able to use this company, that's when they'll ask for more information normally. Now, every company is different and every agency is different, but as a general rule, I believe that that applies just based on my experience. One of the things you also want to do is create a customer-specific capability statement for that customer so that you can provide that to them when you're making your appointments or when you arrive for an appointment, give it to them as a leave behind. And you want to focus here on why does that customer want to work with you? Lead with your experience and your expertise. Sometimes I have seen companies who tried to lead with their socioeconomic categories. You know, I'm a HubZone company that does X, rather than I'm a aerospace company that happens to be HubZone certified. So they're going to be more interested in your experience and your expertise or what products you provide than they are your socioeconomic category. Then when you're ready to connect with the customer, you identify who within the company it is you want to send the information to. You send them your capability statement and ask for a meeting or a phone call, try to get some interaction. Very importantly, these people are incredibly busy. Be polite, be punctual, be patient, and I would say be appreciative of their time. Listen carefully. They will be choosing their words carefully when they talk to you. So if you listen very carefully, you will be able to pick up more. There are nuances in communication. So engage in what we call active listening. You can also attend events where your customer is attending or presenting. There was a conference recently, a small business conference for the Society of American Military Engineers, SAMI. And I know that there were people there who were able to meet other people and start developing those relationships. The same thing can happen at other conferences and matchmaking events. You want to build and maintain those relationships. So when you start talking to someone, acknowledge your limitations. One of the things I frequently hear small business office people say is that a company might come to us and say they can do everything. And if they say they can do everything, we find them risky because no one can do everything. So hone in on what you do the best. What are your core competencies? What can you do better than someone else? Avoid overpromising and own your own mistakes, make corrections. And this happens to everyone. I actually was interviewed for a podcast not too terribly long ago when someone asked me a question and I answered a different question. Not my best hour. So when they posted it, I immediately said, error correction here as a response, and explained what the answer should have been. Everyone makes mistakes. If you hear something from an advisor, including me, that does not make sense, ask again and make sure that you're understanding what, not only what they're saying, but that it's in the context of what you're really trying to ask. So where do you go for information? There are tons of places. Newspapers, trade magazines, LinkedIn, agency websites, and company websites. I would also say people are a good resource. Your Apex accelerators, SBDCs, women's business centers, etc. I also like the websites that I've listed here, and you will have this as a handout with links. So I encourage you to go look at those and see what you can gain from them. So on to the main part of our conversation today. We're going to look at some online databases, customer websites, and talk some more about making connections. So I like to look at the past, the present, and the future. That gives you an overall sense of the agency, or if you can find this information, of the prime contractors. The two best, or at least favorite, websites for me are usaspending.gov and fpds.gov. USA Spending, I think, is a touch more user-friendly, but FPDS will let you more easily delve into details. So I like them both very much. Then SAM, you can use to find current opportunities. This is the same website where you registered your company to sell to the government. So it's pretty easy to use and to get into. I think they're making it easier all the time. But if you have any trouble navigating that, get with someone else and they will help you. The Apex accelerators do this all the time, as do many other organizations. Then I think it's good to look at the future if you can. And the government does post procurement forecasts. Some of the agencies do a better job at that than others. When you're looking at a projection by NAICS code, sometimes that's pretty broad because the NAICS codes themselves are pretty broad, but at least it gives you an idea about where you can focus. This is the landing page for usaspending.gov. One of the things I like is the glossary. Most of the government websites are going to have something like that. So under resources, we look at glossary, and this one is searchable. So I just searched for 3 topics that I thought would be good to know about, and they came up instantly. And these are the definitions that I got. So sometimes you're looking for something and you go, what on earth is this MAS thing she talked about? Well, it's also called the Federal Supply Schedule. And you can get more information about it here. This may be a term you want to focus on later, and perhaps not. Product service codes are applicable to just about everybody, and NAICS codes are applicable to just about everybody. The NAICS code is going to describe what your company does, and the product service codes are going to describe what you sell. So we're going to do some searches, and these are the fields for the searches. You can search by keywords, which is a good place to start if you're not familiar with codes. As you learn more, you may want to hone your searches and narrow them by the different types of fields available. Sometimes you may want to find out something about a competitor, and you could search on recipients, because the recipient category includes all the awardees. You will also want to look at the award type. You don't want necessarily to spend a lot of time looking at grants. You want to look at contracts. And here's where you would click on Search Award Data, and the screen that would come up here shows you the filters, and you're going to work through the filters so that you're going to search that database. Then you want to download the data and organize it, because there are so many fields of data here that you can't really even see them all at once on a spreadsheet. You want to organize the data so that it becomes truly information for your company that you can use. If you click on the little I, you will get a list again of all of the filters that are available. And we can start here. I did a keyword search on software development, and I got 15,869 contracts plus 860 IDVs. That's a lot to look at. If I add to that a time period restriction, I can reduce the number of results to 1726 for contracts and 214 for IDVs. And that's a lot more reasonable if I'm going to try to look at each of these to see what's in them. I can filter also by NAICS codes and product service codes to focus on the purchases related to my products and services. And after all, that's what I'm really after. I want to know who's buying what I sell. So typically, you're going to be able to find your NAICS codes and the product service codes with some other online tools. We can provide those if you don't have them. But searching for both gives you different results than searching for one at a time. If I use all four of those filters, I found 173 contracts and 67 IDVs. And actually, it looks like I searched again after I wrote that. I got 18 and 3. That's even better. You can always broaden the search, but if you can narrow it at first, it gives you something to focus on. Choosing the NAICS codes can make a huge difference. You want a NAICS code that the buyers are using. So I recommend starting with what you think is the best NAICS code to actually describe products and services you sell. However, when you do keyword searches, if you find that buying activities are using different NAICS codes, those are the ones you want to search. The objective here is to get as much relevant information as possible without getting extraneous data that just distracts you. Once you have done that, you can also switch gears. If you see the upper right-hand corner here, instead of looking at prime awards, you can look at sub-awards. And this is the type of screen you're going to get. So here, you're finding out that the prime is Lock Martin, and you can find out what subcontractors they reported. And if they reported them, they'll show up in this list. Then you want to save this information so that you can use it. You want to click on download and download the data. And you want to click on award. Right now, it's really the only option you've got, but even as they add other options, this may be the easiest thing to use. So you're going to choose the level of data and save those in an Excel chart or other spreadsheet format so that you can create pivot tables to view the fields of interest or simply sort and filter the data. And I've got a sample here where I have manipulated the data. I did a pivot chart, then looked for the agencies of interest and organized them from the highest dollar amount to the lowest dollar amount. So this is how much this agency spent in that NAICS code and product service code in that year. So depending on what you want to know, you select the appropriate filters, run the report. If there are too many results, you cannot download it, so you'll have to make further restrictions. But once you get it to where you can download it, put it in a spreadsheet so that you can analyze the data for your use. And this is a sample where I used NAICS code 541511 for FY24 and downloaded it and created the pivot table. So this is my pivot table.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, Judy, but we have a really good question from one of our attendees. Will it pull only primary NAICS or also secondary if more than one applies?
Okay, interesting thing. A lot of times you will see many NAICS codes that should be included in the work in a large contract, but when the buyer posts the contract, the solicitation for the contract, they have to select one NAICS code. And the same thing is going to apply very soon to the prime contractors who are posting the subcontracts. They have to classify it under one NAICS code. So the general rule is the larger dollar value is the NAICS code they assign. So the best example that comes to my mind is in construction. If the government is taking an approach that they're going to design, bid, build, they will have one contract they issue for the design, and then they will have another contract they issue for construction. If, however, and each one of those will have its own NAICS code, but if they decide to combine it to do a design build contract, then they're going to use the greater dollar volume to assign the NAICS code. And it's always going to cost more to construct a building than to design it. Well, I shouldn't say always, but in my experience, that's been the case. So the NAICS code that gets assigned to it is the construction NAICS code. If you were an architect engineering firm and you're only searching for the architect engineering NAICS codes, you may miss this opportunity. If you expand your search to include construction, you will catch it. But again, what you're looking for there is a subcontracting or partnering type of opportunity, because the architect engineer firm will have to work with the construction firm who actually submits the bid. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
When you look at the solicitation itself, look at the statement of work, and that will give you well, the best information possible, whether the NAICS codes are assigned appropriately or not. So here, I'm trying to make sense out of the data I got from the website. So I've added some filters of my own so that I can look at these things separately. I can look at it to say, oh, well, what happened in my state? Or what happened with a specific agency? But right here, I've just got the award data sorted by recipients. So Booz Allen Hamilton came to the top of the list. And of course, the data is going to be different every time you run it based on the time period you run it for, et cetera. But I would venture to say that if you look at the top 5 there, they're probably going to be repeated in other searches for different dates. You can run this many times in many ways. You can sort it in different ways, depending on what's important to you. And it is important to note that there are frequently differences in selling to the Department of Defense or being a Department of Defense subcontractor and working with civilian agencies and their prime contractors. So you might want to sort on that too, if you have a preference. And this is another one where I did the main search based on the service code. So I used a D3, which is communications and electronics, the specific fiscal year, and then I downloaded it and used the pivot table to come up with this, although it looks like I did not format that for dollars. So it's a very busy looking chart. But again, the companies may not be in the exact same order because I did a different search criteria, but you're seeing the same basic companies come to the top every time. And it could be that one of those companies would be a good customer for you. And it could be that their subcontractor would be a good customer for you. So this is just the beginning of your journey, but it is a good place to start, in my opinion. Okay. So there's more historical data available in the federal procurement data system. And in fact, USA Spending gets their data from the the federal procurement data system. The FPDS used to have a lot of other reports in it that were transferred to SAM, but FPDS will let you get to the details on individual contracts, and you can search by contract number, agency, awardee, or keywords. So once you've gotten information from USA Spending, if you want to delve into it further, you can use FPDS. And I like using FPDS for several reasons. We're going to look at some screens and I'll show you why. First of all, it's so easy to search it. When it comes up, there's this, it says it's a Google-like search. So you can type in anything to get you started. But if you've done some research already on USA Spending and you want to know about a particular contract or contractor, you can use that as the beginning of your search. Here I did a search for VA Medical Center Tulsa, and I get the contract number, the NAICS code they used to buy it with, the product service code I think they used to buy it with. So I can say, if I want to look for similar projects in the future, these are good codes for me to search under. Wherever I'm doing my search, in SAM or in USA Spending, wherever, these are probably going to be consistently used. I also get information about the contracting office and the contractor. To get more information, I can click into View, and I will get a more detailed report, which I find very informative. Actually, here's the product service code and the NAICS code. And here's your basic description. But where it says description of requirement, sometimes the buying activity will actually give you some detailed information. You can't always expect this level of detail, but frequently you will find it, and I love that. Plus, the number of offers received. There were only 3 offers for this, and that will give you an idea about the level of competition. That may be very important to your company. After we've looked at the past, we want to examine the present. What are they doing today? And SAM is probably the best source of that information, although not everything is going to be listed here. Things over $25,000, yes. Things below $25,000, maybe not. But it's a good place to start. So you can start with your search, and I recommend that you go ahead and select the domain that you want to search, because in my experience, that makes it much easier to get through the process. And here's a sample search. I found 4 matches, and this was one of them. It says showing 1 of 4. So I clicked on the link to that one, and then was able to pull up the regular solicitation, and it will have all the information I need. One thing I didn't mention was that if you find something that's really promising, you might want to follow it or use the criteria for your future searches, because you will find information in here, keywords in addition to codes, that might be valuable to you. Also recommend that you create and save your own searches in SAM. And that's because you can tailor those searches to your company, especially once you begin to understand the keywords they're using, the codes they're using. You can tailor this to your company and then run it when you're ready. And it's flexible so that you can change it at your convenience. And they're really quick and easy to create. If you're interested in that, we can work on that at some other point. But these are the basic steps. You decide what you want to look for. You log in. You do have to be logged in to do this. And then you search the opportunities and set the filters the way you want them. And you save it. You simply have to name it. And then you can reuse it whenever you want to. It's always there for you every time you log in. And those are the filters that are available in SAM. They're very much like the filters that are available in the other databases. The ones I have marked with asterisks here, you have to click on more filters to see those. They simply don't show up in the list. I suspect that's just because the list is so long. Then, okay, we've looked at the past, we've looked at the present. So what are they planning to do in the future? Some ideas about that. Visit the agency websites. Frequently, they will have articles about what is going on, news releases, etc. You can find out a lot of information by contacting their small business office. Perhaps they can tell you about their upcoming projects. Attend their webinars, search the internet. I recommend, like Mr. James suggested, that you create your own LinkedIn site, but follow these agencies on social media. Some of them actually use Facebook too. I know that the Navy has done some webinars on Facebook Live. So check out the companies and agencies you're interested in and follow them on social media. And attend vendor outreach meetings when it makes sense. If it is a virtual outreach, it's not going to cost you anything except your time and your prep time. I think that those are excellent. If it's an in-person event, those can be incredibly valuable if you meet the right people. So I recommend seeing who's going to be there and deciding if it's worth the time and money for you to be there. Then there's some do's. Do ask questions. Do listen carefully to the answer. Listen to other people's questions if you're in a group setting and seek clarification. Sometimes clarification is an iterative process too. So if you get an answer that appears to be a non-answer, rephrase the question and ask it again. Don't just wait for the phone to ring. For heaven's sakes, don't expect government contracting to be easy, and don't expect immediate results. Sometimes it takes a long time. In my experience, it can take up to 2 years for people to get their first contract. And these are some websites to help you find federal buying activities. If you go to the Federal Acquisition Jump Station, which is run by NASA, all of the agencies, the buying activities are listed here. So you can click on those links to get to the procurement type of information for that agency. And then you want to look for things like selling to, vendor communication, subcontracting directory, acquisition or procurement forecast, small business guide. These are the things that will help you know how to contract or do business with that specific agency. And then there's the acquisition forecast. There is a link here that will take you to this page, and you can look at an agency and you can look at its procurement forecast from here. This is what it looks like. I went to the NAVFAC course, forecast landing page, and it had a lot of information. Some of them will have more than others, but I would encourage you to find out which agencies you want to look at first, then go here to learn more about how to do business with them. And then you can look at the, when you click the link from the Acquisition Jump Station, you can look at all the things on the landing page. Some will be relevant to you and some will not. You're probably not going to be too interested in grants, but the page that says procurement assistance, that has invaluable information. The page that says resources and tools, that has invaluable information. So you can click through these and see what you can find that is relevant to you, and only you can determine what's relevant to you. Here's just a little blow up of the Department of Transportation page, and they have a lot of information there, and you can get more information by contacting their small business professionals. Again, I suggest you do your homework first so that when you ask a question or ask your questions, you're getting the most bang for your minute, because your time is very valuable. A lot of agencies will have guides like this that tell you how to do business with them. And subcontracting directories. These are easier to find with some agencies than with others, but I suggest doing a keyword search for it if you don't see it listed somewhere, because this can be a godsend. Now, people in these agencies and companies, here we're talking about the companies, they move. People get promoted, people retire, but the phone numbers tend to stay the same. So even if it's an old directory, like this says FY 2022, the odds are that if you call that phone number and ask for someone that helps with small businesses, they'll be able to help you. And here's another example. Department of Agriculture also has a great page. I circled here a few of the things I thought were really good. They have a link for business opportunities, one for vendor communication, and their about procurement link. The vendor communication, I think, is interesting. A lot of agencies are posting this now. This tells you how they want to interact with you. They'll have outreach events. And again, here, they not only give you a subcontracting directory, but a list of their own small business specialists. Not every agency is going to look like USDA or the Department of Transportation, but most agencies will have something similar. And here's the their procurement forecast. They have it listed by time frame, right down to Agricultural Research Service 2022 forecast. And this is an old slide, obviously, but they have that kind of information available. So look at that. I think it can be very valuable. Also, when we were doing the searches to see about subcontractors, you can get this information from the subcontracting directories or your USA spending research. You're going to find some contractors that have a lot of dollar volume of contracts, and you may want to see if you can be a supplier to them. So you look them up. This one happens to be Leidos, and they're telling you here very specifically, please be specific in describing the Leidos business needs, markets, opportunities, and or customers you're uniquely positioned to support. And then they want you to register with them. But you see, they really want you to determine whether there's a lot of potential there first. So they want you to explore their website to learn more about them before you reach out. They also have a link for inclusion and diversity. And I think this is a good thing to look at in all of the prime contractors you might be interested in. You finally get to the place that it will say download a questionnaire or please complete the following. And that's where you give them your basic information. Again, I would make note of what basic information they're asking for, because that's what you want to include on your capability statement. Here's the same thing with SAIC. I especially wanted to call your attention to this, and there will be a link on your PDF when you get it. This is a 28-minute interview with 2 small business liaison officers from large companies. And I would listen carefully to what they have to say. So again, making connections is getting to know your customers and building relationships. So listen to them, go where they go, do your homework, sometimes called due diligence. Be professional in your approach. Remember that relationships are not static and they develop over time. And here's some ideas about how to get to know your customers. I like to listen to podcasts because otherwise driving time is it's dead time. I get nothing done during windshield time unless I am listening to something. So I like the podcast there. Conferences are great as long as the people you need to talk to are there so that you can hear what they have to say. I love webinar series because a lot of them are posted online and you can access them 24/7 when you're ready to listen. And these are all links to some of the ones that I personally listen to. And then professional organizations. And just like podcasts and webinar series, there are more professional organizations that I could possibly list here. But these are three that I'm familiar with and would encourage you to check out if they apply to you. So you want to go to trade fairs and matchmaking events and vendor outreach events when they make sense. You don't have an unlimited amount of time or an unlimited budget, so be selective. Use social media. It's inexpensive and effective. And attend professional organization meetings and read their magazines, etc. Again, do your homework and communicate. Respond when they send something to you. Be honest and don't overpromise. We already talked about the roles of the small business professionals versus the contracting officers. I encourage you to review the solicitations carefully so that you can perform the contract well. Be patient and be persistent. You can contact us at any time. I'm at the Tribal Government Institute Apex Accelerator. There's my phone number and my website.
All right. Thank you, Judy. All right. So the old Marine's going to have to come in and like, all right, time. But that was great. And we're getting comments from attendees that this has been a really informative and a lot of good resources. And this attendee says, I wish she was at my Apex Accelerator. So, please, by all means, feel free to reach out to Judy. That's why we're here. We're here to educate and to help small businesses grow. Again, Judy, again, we've got to do this again. So let's aim for 2024. Again, educating those small businesses out there. My name again is Edward James. So everything that Judy does, we also do it as a company. So, but we are, as far as business development and capture and proposal solutions firm. So Judy, again, thank you so much. And again, I met Judy at a procurement conference. So again, this is what we do, and we want to help you all grow your business. Again, we want to say thank you for joining us today, and we want to be respectful of your time. Judy, is there any final words that you would like to say before we call it a day?
Just that it's been a fun time, and I look forward to hearing from some of you.
Absolutely. And also, everyone will be receiving the slide deck with the links where you can actually visit those websites, and you will also have access to replay the webinar itself. So thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.